Good evening, Facebook. It's Pup Hades here. We are doing another Sunday stream. Of course, it is Sunday. It is Sunday, yes. Today, we're going to be talking about competitions. And so I know this has definitely been one of the most requested streams. So I'm really glad that we have some puppies here that are going to talk about live streaming. So just give me a few minutes. Stand by as I get this shared to the different groups, and of course, we love the Nintendo Wii music for some reason while we get everything set up. It's just one of those things. So come in, say hello, tell me where you're watching from, and we will be getting started here momentarily. Let me just figure out what I'm doing here. Boom, 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 boom. I don't like no. Well, one, it's like it just popped into my head one day, and I started playing it. I was like, I'm gonna play this um, while I get things going, and then it just kind of stuck. And Facebook doesn't flag it as like non-royalty free, and they don't silence the video. So I was like, you know what? I'll keep playing it for as long as I can get away with it. We have Buffalo, New York, Detroit, New Jersey, lots of East Coasters. All right, where is my internet's being super slow right now. Oh, hello from the UK. Okay, it's like totally being slow right now. I'm just gonna move over. Okay. Bangor, Maine. Hold on. Like my browser is being super slow, so I'm just waiting for it to load so that we can get it shared to all the groups. There we go. Finally. Okay. Now we're making some progress. Share. Oops. Oh my god. Yeah, I probably should turn my Wi-Fi off from all my other devices. That should help. That should do a thing, I think. Greetings from Illinois and Chicago. All right, cool, awesome. This is it. Now, share. Oh my gosh, I just keep getting the spinning buffering wheel. This is like the slowest my internet has like been. All right, here we go. All right, now. Yeah. It's. Oh my god. It's happening. It's slowly happening. Norman, Oklahoma. Australia. Okay, share to a group. All right, finally. Wait, no. There's a window. There's a box. Oh my god. This is like the slowest it's ever been getting. Okay, here. Now I'm just gonna hit click, click. Oh my god. I think that's a group share. I'm just like everything's grayed out, and so I'm just hitting. The only thing I can really do is see the little share button, and so I'm like, okay, well, hopefully I'm sharing to puppy groups, but all right, we've got a few groups. All right. Oh, that was a nightmare. Sorry, everyone. Now, thank you so much for bearing with us while we get everything shared. It's really important that we get it out there as far as we can. But now we're going to go ahead and we are going to start the show. So sit back, get a cocktail, and enjoy. Hello. Oh wait, hold on. I gotta end the the Wii music was still going on in the background. Hello. How is everybody doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I went for a nice hike today. I'm a little bit tired, but it's good. It's been a good day. I'm ready to be educated. Something that we were talking about yesterday was that how, like here in Denver, there are not really any competitions. And so this is a subject that I'm completely dumb on. And I'm ready for my mind to be like blown. So I'm ready. All right, let's go ahead and get through some formalities. Sparky, go ahead, take the wheel and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am Pop Sparky, the current 2019 Cincinnati Puppy. Pronouns are he, him. Also go by hashtag Trash Puppy. And I interpret most all of the local competitions and kink-friendly things. That's what I do.
Then next up we have Bolt. Go ahead and take it over.
And hi, I am Brian Bolt Donner, or just Bolt here. I'm executive producer. Okay, you're right about these things being really hot. Hi. I'm executive producer of Cincinnati Leather, which we run the Cincinnati Leather and the Cincinnati Pop and Handler competitions. So I'm here in Cincinnati. Pronouns are he, him, and really happy to be here.
All right. Thank you all for just being here and spending some of your time on Sunday with us and with the viewers. As always, everybody who's watching, this is a live Q&A. So feel free to pop in your questions in the little comment box, and we will get to them, as many of them as possible. But I would first like to ask y'all, how did you even get into competitions?
You want that one, Sparky, or I got my story, but
So your story is probably more fun, but so when I first got into competitions, I was like super new into the community in general, and I was at On Broadway, rest in peace, one night many moons ago, and one of the guys who I kind of know in the community is all like, "You need to run for Cincinnati Leather," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" But Dennis is very good at convincing people, and he talked me into it. So that's how I first got into competitions, being like, "Hey, you should just do it, but do it. It's so fun. Do it, yeah."
So it's just like, hey, like we think you'd be good at this, and it's more so like the fun aspect that was like, okay, I'll go ahead and give this a try.
Yeah, absolutely. There were drinks involved. It's fine.
Yeah. Everything sounds good when drinks are
involved. We launched the puppy title.
That one I was super excited about. I like puppy stuff, I guess.
Weird.
What about you, Bolt?
So I've been part of the leather community or doing leather stuff since my 20s, which I am far from now. I didn't really get into the contest stuff until probably around 2013, 14. A friend of mine here locally won the Mr. Midwest title, and it was sort of a weird time in my life. So it's like I had a lot of time in my hands. So I started going to a lot of contests and meeting other title holders. And what I found was that so many people were really, really, really nice. So can I swear?
You can say, yeah, this is not a PG-13. I say all fucking kinds of things all the time. So
okay. So everyone was just great and super nice and wanted to really do stuff. So just kind of got into it there. And 2 years later, I ended up running for and winning the Tri-State Leather title, which I went to IML. And then just kind of from there, I ended up, well, as it's like during my title year, I went to a ton of contests. After IML, I went to a ton of contests. And then Randy Bridges, who the owner of the On Broadway bar that Matt was referring to, he was ready to hand it off to somebody else, and so gave that to me. And we started off with a leather contest, and we've been doing that for a couple years now. And then last year, we had been dabbling with the idea of doing a puppy contest, and one of our community members and someone who'd run for the leather title a few times said, it's like, I would really like to see a puppy title start. And I'm a big believer in, like, a contest is not necessarily the best forum for everyone to contribute. It's a good thing for some, but not for everyone. So we said, okay, let's do this. And he became co-producer in as much as we have like official titles and stuff in our structure, and got that going last year, the puppy title, and this year we're supposedly adding a handler title, though COVID may have other plans for 2020. We'll see.
Yeah, that's something we were talking about how a lot of events are going virtual and how they're impacting it. We'll table that for the competitions in just a little bit. But what would you say? Why is it important to have competitions? What's overall like the point? There's gotta be something pushing this forward, and that's why they are springing up all over the nation and across the world. But there's like, what's really the purpose of having a competition?
So, if you don't mind, Matt, Sparky. So I'm very like Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi in my thought on what titles and competitions do. I think that in many ways they're a way for, and as Matt kind of noted, like when he started this, he was very new to the community. I think that it used to be when a lot of competitions started, it was a way for people who'd been doing it for a long time to kind of get recognition, and had evolved to a nice way for new people to sort of pledge the leather community. And so the contest starts, the contest aspects and categories kind of give people a chance to like learn history, really like show up, be involved. It's just, for some people, it's just a really good excuse to be involved in their own community.
And just as a side note here, in the comments, side note, Sparky won Cincinnati Puppy a year ago today, and then happy anniversary on your win, Sparky. So yay!
Go Sparky!
Did you want to add any, like, what do you like? You got into competing because you were kind of like encouraged to join, but what do you think is like really the purpose of competitions?
I don't know. First and foremost, for me at the time, it was like the social aspect of it, because it's something that we can do, and like the whole community will come together for it. And yeah, it was great for socialization. And actually, that first contest I won, because why the F not? And during my year, I was at Tri-State Leather here in Cincinnati, and no sash, no nothing, just hanging out. And I was chatting with this guy, and he was going on and on about like title holders are all just like terrible, attention-seeking people, and just on and on about all these negative things. And I'm like, yeah, no, man, I guess I can kind of see that. Also, I'm Cincinnati Leather 2014. I didn't know if you knew that. And that aspect, with that was another reason for running for the title this year. I've met so many title holders over the years because I'm an event whore, so I go to all of them for the Bible study. And
yes, for Bible study, that's very important.
Exactly. And just, I don't know, there's just so many amazing title holders that we have out there, and so many of them I probably wouldn't have met if it weren't the fact that they had won a title locally or whatever, and their goal was to just get the name of that title out there and kind of help spread their message. And I think it's a great platform for people to, I don't know, just kind of get out there in the world and spread even their local community. I mean, now everyone knows that, the Cincinnati Pup community is a dumpster fire, right? That's the message we were spreading.
I want to kind of echo something that you said in that story, and it's like there seems to be very split perceptions about competitions and title holders. Some of them positive, some of them very negative. And I know that like as a new puppy, as like last year, and then not having the experience or competitions not being near our location, it was really easy for like puppies in our community to look negatively upon titles and competitions, because it was like, what is the point? Like, it does seem very, like, from an outside perspective, very self-serving, and nobody knows what title holders do. And then a lot of people, like in the pup groups on Facebook, when the question is asked, how do you get involved with the community? The first response is usually, get involved with the competition. How do you navigate some of like the the bipolar reactions of people when it comes to competitions?
It it's tricky. And here's the thing. In my view, both sides are kind of right. Because there have been, frankly, some pretty shitty title holders. You get once in a while some true like attention grabbing narcissists that like get a title and take that to mean like, oh well, now I'm an authority, even though I'm like a year into stuff. And now people have to listen to me. That said, I have seen a lot of people that really shine. They get this opportunity. I will often say that the sash is like someone's like Dumbo's magic feather. It
Yeah.
can take someone who just really never like they come out, they're part of it, but they're really fairly shy and they don't really have a reason to step up. And you give them a reason to step up, and suddenly they are capable of stuff they never would have thought. And so that can be this really awesome aspect. And it doesn't happen every time. And of course, like a few of the really shitty ones can make it really hard for the rest to seem valid. Um, so, I mean, that said, there are some people that are like, if you see anybody with a platform at all, you're gonna like, there's gonna be criticism. You get, I would say, like being a title holder. I think this is true for leather or puppy or whatever. It's like, you have to give to your community, but not too much. You need to be involved, but you need to like be personal. You need to um, like fundraise a lot for the community, but never need a penny for yourself. And you better be hot when you do it, or else someone's gonna bitch. So there really is. I mean, there's a huge number of double standards that hit people, and I think that for a lot of people that get the title, suddenly it's their first time seeing that. Experiencing that people who've never met you hate you.
Yeah.
And like, I think the first time that happened to me, I'm like, oh shit. So it'll make you step back a little bit. But sometimes that's a really good learning lesson. I said it's the best worst lesson someone will learn from having a title. That suddenly it's like, oh, I can do stuff, and sure, this is like this sash can like people pay attention to it. You get a certain amount of people's time and attention, and that can be great, but it comes with a cost. But it also means that you don't get to dodge the attention when you want to.
Right. You're kind of thrust into the public eye a little bit
Uh-huh.
more. How was that experience for you, Sparky? Like after you ran, because it was out like fun and games after a few drinks, do this competition. You're like, yeah. Like, what was the experience after doing that?
So my experience with my first title wasn't quite as in depth as this one. The requirements of the title weren't really a whole lot. It was just a couple events throughout the year, and I was still in school actually at the time, and like I could have held a lot more events, but I could also stay at home and watch Supernatural and drink. So that first one, it was basically just a party the whole way through. With the most recent one, yeah, there was a couple days afterwards where I did like absolutely nothing, and then it was, well, shit. Now I gotta do something. Try and do something for the community. We've had one major event over the summer that was Cincinnati Puppy over at one of the bars over in Kentucky. But my big thing that I got on after that, I actually got with a few local puppies. First and foremost, Pup Logan, and then we also brought in Beast, who was the other producer of Cincinnati Puppy. My boy Pup, I'm never gonna remember Damon's pup name right here live on Amun-Ra. Yeah, Amun-Ra. I knew that the whole time. I was just messing with you, Damon. That's fine. And a few other puppies in the community, and we started GCPA, which is Greater Cincinnati Pets and Handlers. So that was kind of my big focus on that, and we got that together just for social events, not necessarily centered around bars. We had a couple events like in the park or like cookouts and stuff that we do, just random hangouts, just so people can get out. It doesn't have to be centered around a bar or around alcohol. It's just about hanging out, having fun, asking questions, and learning. So that very different from my first title year. Yeah.
There's a question in here from Jeff. Jeff asks, well, this is really small print. Hold on. My name is Pup Rocky. I'm new to the pup community, and I'm wondering, are there competitions for pups? Whoop! Are there competitions for pups who've never done competitions like newcomer pup competitions? And what is considered competition ready? And I have a list of referring back to my list of questions. There's this term, competition ready. I'm like, what is it? Like, oh wait, so you can see my quotes. Competition ready.
Uh,
All right. So what is competition ready? And to answer Jeff's question, are there like newcomer categories for puppy competitions?
You want
you
that?
just, I'll start with that. It's like honestly, I'd say these days, if there's a competition that isn't welcoming or isn't like open to newcomers, I've not heard of it. So, I mean, anybody who's new to this can come do it. That's part of the deal. Things competition. I don't think puppy, in my experience, I don't think puppy contests have ever been like, no, you have to have this long, like resume of all the crap you've done. So most things are pretty welcoming there. I will say that we make a specific point in the Cincinnati contests to make it a good experience for the competitors, because we know the worst thing about any contest is you end up having one winner. So I mean, unless it's RuPaul's Drag Race last week. You end up having one winner, but you have this like group of other people that like wanted to step up and may have done great. That now they're like, oh well, I guess I suck. So you want to give them a good experience and say, oh no, I can still do stuff in my community. I can still be involved and do something else. I don't have to have a sash to let me do that. As far as competition ready, if I'm understanding the term, I don't think I've ever used it, but there are certain, I mean, it's content, they're pageanty, they're real pageanty, which should surprise no one. And for these things, like, you're right. You do need to be able to present yourself well. That doesn't mean you need some gym body. It doesn't mean you need whatever, but it does need, I think anybody who's really ever watched, again, to like harkening back to the Drag Race thing or another reality TV show, you kind of have to develop your own brand, whatever that is, and be ready to present that, because the judges are going to only see this little sliver of you and need to get it pretty quickly, because the contests do go by really fast. So you need to be ready and not like figuring your stuff out on the fly. Like have your outfits ready, have your know what you're going to say in your speech or do in your fantasy or what have you, so you're not winging it the whole way through. That's my read on competition ready.
Yeah, no, I would concur with that. Yeah. I would want to add, when we're talking about like newcomers to the community and if there's competitions for them. So from my experiences, if you're new to the community and you're, comfortable with your puppy self and wanting to get into all that, run for a title. And I say that because the 6 people that I ran with, some of them I knew really well before then, some I didn't know at all. But that weekend, you're doing everything together, and you end up being the support system for each other throughout the entire weekend. So you get a bond with those people that you might not have otherwise had, because you're going through this process together. You're the ones that are there around each other all the time, like talking each other through everything. And no, man, you did great. It's fine. I know it was super stressful doing this, X, Y, Z. I think it's great for a newcomer to get that experience and get those kinds of bonds in the community.
I want to talk that way. We have some sort of, for people who've never seen a competition or participated in one, what is and Jim says, love the dumpster fire backdrop. It's what is, how is a normal or your typical competition set up, and what is the process from essentially application to that final round and judging? Like, I mean, this is going to be extensive, like, because I would imagine there's an entire process for processing applications and, choosing your judges and all this stuff. So, like, I know we could probably talk about that one question for hours, but your best way to talk about how it functions for somebody who's never seen any sort of competition?
Like I could write the dissertation on this one, so if you mind. Yeah, so the whole process. Now, do you want to talk about just like how the weekend contest goes, or like the planning and everything? I could like highlight on that.
I would say maybe just like abridge the behind the scenes process, but more so focused then on like what people can expect if they were to apply and run for a competition or spectate that competition.
Okay, so yeah, there is a ton of planning that goes in as far as judge selection, just trying to figure out, because there's once you start getting into a lot of the events, you realize there's literally, well, again, before March 2020, always something going on in leather and competition world, nearly every freaking weekend. So trying to find the right kind of time, and because you want to be sensitive to your community, and you want to make sure that you have judges who have the right attitude that matches what you want to see a title holder bring to your community. Like if we make a very specific point of including as much diversity on as many axes as we can, gender expression, age, race, even presentation. We also try to have like some, because we're a locally based contest, to make sure we always have a good number of local voices that understand what we're going through here. Okay, so you apply, you're gonna, and every contest is gonna run a little bit differently. So this is hardly universal. There is almost always an application. A lot of these have gone very digital. It's gonna ask you some basic stuff, like who you are, what your name is, how you present, whatever, like that. But also clubs you might be affiliated, what fetishes you have, what you like, what your ideal like fantasy would be. So different ones are going to present that a little, like ask different questions. We have a whole section, and we have even included, if you like, I call it my open book test, like a couple questions about like, okay, who designed the puppy pride flag? What do these bits of hanky code mean? What are aspects of mosh safety? That the contestants get the chance to answer in their own time, before the deadline, of course, just so that judges don't have to waste time during the weekend asking fairly straightforward questions that they should know about. So it's our kind of way of educating. Once the weekend starts, typically, if this is a full weekend kind of thing, your Friday might start with a meet and greet where the contestants and judges are all sort of in a similar social space.
Ooh, real quick. Sorry, just backtrack. So during the application process, before an applicant becomes a contestant, are there people that picked, or just is every applicant automatically become a contestant?
So we have for our puppy content, we've only had 1 year for puppy. We didn't reject anything for that. We have rejected, I think, 1 or 2 contestants for it. We started off, it was very open. I mean, anybody who wanted to apply and run could do so. Right now, what we've learned is that there are a few certain things that you do need to screen for.
Red flag.
Like say that you're holding your competition in a bar and one of your contestants is banned from that bar. Things like that. Relevant things like that. So, but largely, we don't necessarily do a ton of policing. If someone is known to be a bully, a problematic person, known for a lot of like consent violations or what have you, then no, we don't need that in the competition. We don't need to give that a platform. But we're and most competitions are very liberal with someone can bring to the table. We have to have been a puppy for 5 years, or we have to have all new gear or whatever. Now, we let a lot of people come in, though we do have a screening process, yes.
Okay. And then following that, so you were going into saying that there was this meet and greet process with the judges, like the judges and the contestants before the actual event starts, right?
Yeah, it's usually, so there's usually some time where the judges get to see the contestants sort of intermingle with their community in a time that there are not being like directly questions. Now, oftentimes there'll be like raffle ticket sales or something like that, something for the contestants to do, just so the judges can see them in like their natural environment. Like sometimes it's like more stringently observed than others. Sometimes there'll be competition parts on that Friday night. In my experience, often not, but sometimes. Usually what it is the judges get a chance Friday to observe so that Saturday, when the other parts kick in, they now have like, okay, well, last night I saw you do this, or you said this in conversation with me. Can you explain more? So typically then moving on to the second day of it, the main day, you're going to start with a Monday sort of interview. These can last, I've seen anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes to a half an hour, depending on the contest and how many contestants are there. So but basically you are in a closed room situation. Well, again, not every contest is the same. Most contests that I've experienced do closed interviews where it's really just the judges, the contestants one at a time, and then maybe a few other people like keeping score and sort of tracking things. Others do open public interviews so that anyone can come in. They may even do a public Q&A sort of thing. Like I know that Indiana Puppy, they do open interviews. So anybody who wants to come see that can. There's pros and cons both ways. There's like, well, if you do it in a public thing, then some people get really performative. And it's hard for the judges to say, it's like, well, it's easy for like someone to say some stuff that's like manipulative of the crowd, but isn't necessarily like what they think, and also like in a private, there might be some things that they'd be willing to talk about in a private setting with the judges that they don't want to have blasted out everywhere.
Right. I would ask, I wonder, because this reminds me of I was watching, it was a leather competition. The video, it was somebody giving a review of this leather competition on YouTube. And he was kind of going in depth about some of the judges' questions. It was definitely an open forum, but the judges would ask questions that were kind of shockingly irrelevant. Like, what's your favorite color? Is there do you personally, or like, have y'all asked silly questions? And if so, what's the point?
Okay, actually, that is a great question on these things. I'm actually a big believer in how, because like I can ask you again, like I can say certain things like, okay, what breed do you identify? You can talk about this or your fetishes. You're not going to expect it's like, okay, there's a whole bowl of fruit on the table. Which fruit are you and why? You're not prepared for that kind of question.
Okay, yeah.
So I get an honest answer. And I remember actually was part of a work interview committee years ago where we had one candidate she was good, but we just like kept thinking like something's just off here. And we asked like, okay, the entire box of crayons, what color are you? It's like black, just because like it's just dark. And like, okay. And it's just like, if you're like, oh, there it is. You are a dark cloud. You're a very negative kind of person. And that's how, like, when she knew how to answer most of the other interview questions, but that one threw her a little bit, and she gave a very unedited answer to it.
So you feel that people can really stage some of their answers if they think enough about it, like if they are like towards the kink or about maybe the community focused questions, like they can prepare in advance for those types of questions and frame it to look a little bit more appealing. But by asking more of the pop quiz style questions, you're going to see them react a little bit more like on their toes.
Yeah. And sometimes you get to these competitions that, I mean, especially when you're sort of next level at a regional or international competition, that you've already got a lot of people that have sort of like shown like, okay, you know what you're talking about, you're here, and you may have a lot of great contestants. And so it comes down to personality, where you want to see, like, okay, we need to see something a little bit more beyond. It's kind of again why we put this like the general knowledge questions in the application for our Cincinnati contests, so that like the judges have more time for stuff like that. And it depends. Like I said, if you have a half an hour interview, then you have plenty of time to ask in-depth questions, silly questions, and everything. It's when you get a like 10-minute interview, and if you have like 5 to 7 judges, you might get 1, maybe 2 a piece. And so you got to really sort of make those count. And so that, don't get me wrong, some judges can kind of do that. I'm assuming that we're not talking about like a on-stage fun question, sort of pop question thing, because those are designed to be silly. But largely, but the interview ones, it kind of depends on the judge. And that again, when you're selecting judges, you want to know that you're going to have people like, okay, you have to take it seriously enough to like get to the meat of it, but then not so seriously that you can't get that personality side too.
Gotcha. So then from there, so there's the interview portion. What are some of the other categories that people could expect in a competition?
So some of the ones that are more unique to puppy versus leather, say like a lot of them have a similar structure, but again are not all the same. Some possible ones. A lot of pup contests have a fantasy component, sort of a performative skit piece. So that's usually part of an evening competition where contestants have pretty much carte blanche to do whatever scene they want to come up with, as long as they have sort of limited extras. And so like our standard for that is you have 2 minutes to set up while the MC sort of riffs, 5 minutes to do your fantasy, and then 2 minutes to tear down. If it takes any longer than that, you're penalized because we don't have all night. So the fantasy portion can be a thing. Oftentimes they'll have a speech portion. Usually those are anywhere from like 90 seconds to 2 minutes, which seems short, but you can pack a lot in there if you're concise. I know Cincinnati Puppy does this. A few other contests have like judged mosh components, where the contestants are out on the mats and in whatever way feels correct for them to participate are sort of observed and judged on that. Sometimes there'll be gear components. I guess this is kind of leading a little more back to like leather and the very pageanty kind of competitions where there'll be some gear specific sort of things. Also, there's oftentimes a pop question component where either the judges or audience or even the producers will write questions for the contestants. These can be serious or funny. Most time they're funny. I'm a big fan of funny. It's just, and it should be hopefully a question that gives you room for more than a one-word answer, because that's really kind of like flat. It's like, do you like XYZ? Like, yes.
With a smile and a few winks. Yes.
I always say, like in my Mr. Miyagi way, this is my test of a title holder potential to say, okay, I'm going to send you to such and such bar event to represent the title. You're going to be in sash. A drag queen pulls you up on stage, yada, 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 bitch, mic in your face. Can you riff back at her? Can you free flow kind of thing? Can you talk about what you're doing in a fun way off the cuff in the middle of chaos? Because sure, if you can, like, sure, if we give you, time to prepare for a speech, you can do a good speech. But how can you do off the cuff?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where that piece comes in. It's like that part of the title holder experience.
Gotcha.
And whenever I tell anybody like to prepare for interview, I always say like talk to the judges like you're talking to someone who's brand new to the community, because that's how they're going to look at this. Is like, okay, if I ask you a question and you're like, why are you asking me that? Then they're going to think that's how you're going to react to someone who's brand new to puppy, shows up at a pup event, sees the sash, and comes up to you and asks like a very legitimate, honest question. And you're like, come on, why are you bothering, like wasting my time? They want to know that you're going to just like be nice and answer clearly to someone who doesn't have context. So that's kind of a key thing for a lot of interview stuff there. I'll say like the different categories, like different contests mix them different ways. They weight the points differently. Like one might be worth 200 points versus another being 100. Usually interviews heavily weighted. Again, it's hard to prepare for and tells probably the judges the most. And most contests have some sort of minimum point level. Like you have to get 70% of points to win. Like that's why when you have a competition that only has one contestant, that they do still have to hit a minimum level of points.
Okay, so there's essentially from application to the meet and greet to these different categories. I'm assuming that there's going to be some time of deliberation and assessing. From we're talking about point values depending on the answers, or maybe the performative aspects. After somebody, let's just say that after somebody wins, Jeff wanted to know after a win. Well, one second. If you win a competition, do you have to campaign after winning? And this is where I'm a little bit lost. An example, Puppy Boomy, Mr. Puppy. I'm gonna butcher this. Mr. Puppy Europe has lend a paw in Pup. I don't know. International Geared Pup 2018. Oh my gosh, this is not staying up long enough. Has a campaign, the campaign Shown Your Pill referencing prep. So
Okay,
like after they win, are there expectations for them to campaign for something?
Oh, okay. Actually, this is one I might say, Matt. I think this would be a good one for you because I know what yours was. So,
but I caught part of it. You got a little cut out.
Basically, he's asking when after you've won this, is there an expectation that you have some campaign, some cause that you then constantly promote throughout the title year?
Setting dumpsters on fire.
Yes!
What we came up with. I feel obviously it's going to be different for every competition. This was kind of the first year for Cincinnati Puppy, so it came down to more of like what can be done with it. I know Bolt obviously does Cincinnati Leather, Cincinnati Puppy, and Cincinnati Leather's obviously more established, so they have guidelines they can go with and like here's how we need to move forward. But with Puppy being so new, he's actually been so gracious about just, hey, what sounds good? And that's kind of why we went with this GC paw and we're running with it. And just really the goal of Cincinnati Puppy, at least in the year of the dumpster fire, was let's try and bring as many people together and bring as many people out and interacting within the community as we can and lighting dumpsters on fire because that's what I do.
He's selling himself a little bit short there too. Which, while yes, the glow from the dumpster fires has been wonderful and warm. As he talked about, like he's also an ASL interpreter at a lot of events and has really sort of been a voice, as it were, to make sure that we are, as event producers, and we're thinking about events, not just competitions, but anything we do, that we are mindful of people who may have hearing disabilities or other sort of stuff that we can compensate around if we think about it. There are a lot of things that we just don't necessarily like. To put that on our radar has been really valuable. And that was kind of a big thing that I know the judges noted during that. Now, I will say that it is, to answer the question that came in, no, it's not required at all. I think every community, every different title has a different sort of need for that. Some are very established. You have a ton of people that are doing different things. You don't necessarily need a title holder to go wave that flag for everything. But if they, I say like for the title holders, my only standard is like help the community in whatever way suits you best. If it is putting on shows, if it is talking to people one-on-one, if it's being an accountant, find that place. Hey, don't short accountants. They're very valuable, and I hate doing accounting. That to find that place that they can really contribute in like whatever it is. Sometimes a little more specific about they do want their title holders. Like you do have to host X number of events. You do have to do this, but not everyone has the same requirements. And I think that like it's nice if you've got some sort of greater thing at it, but I feel like if you can't do something that's honest and from, okay, I'm going to be this pageant queen. If it's not honest and from your heart, like if this is not something you truly
where
care
is the tiara? We need a tiara right now.
Where are my roses? If it's not something you honestly do care about, like, don't put on a cause really resonate. This is okay. This is where I'm going to qualify. I might sound like a shitty person on this, and I apologize. Like I've seen so many title holders like get the, and I'm not referring to anyone in specific. So if you feel called out, I apologize. But take on bullying, say, as a platform. But then when you start asking, like, well, okay, well, what do you want to do about bullying? And they've got kind of nothing. It's like, oh, you were bullied. Well, to join the club, I think all of us were at one point or fashion or another. So if you don't have like something you're going to do with that, then that's just you giving this lip service. Like,
Right.
like make sure it's something you really care about. Logan, our current Mix Cincinnati Leather, very passionate about people with, and I'm hoping I'm getting my terminology right, developmental disabilities, and like very like really turned on to that through their brother. And so to see like that part of it and want to be sensitive to that, that can be really moving to see like, oh, just kind of say like you're taking that a little piece of that spotlight you're getting and reflecting it on something that doesn't get a lot of light.
Yeah.
That can really be a wonderful thing. However, if it's just like someone giving lip service, I think that's where like a lot of title holders get a bad name for this. Like, oh, you say this, but you don't really want to do the work.
Right.
You did this because it sounded good for a title, and ooh, people will call you out. So,
I bet. And I'm sure it's not very nice when it does happen. Something that you guys stated, and I want to bring up because it did come back as Sparky, you were talking about people of hard of hearing. Benjamin asked, I think the question is, how do you judge the contestants without insulting, regular people, but also people who are in disability and deaf/hard of hearing? I think I'm trying to understand the question. Like, how do you? I'm assuming that it's in regards to like judging people who.
oh, this is Benjamin. I've seen Benjamin compete a few times. That is a challenge. You do try to do as much as you can, and I've honestly seen very few competitions that have that many deaf or hard of hearing contestants. I'm hoping. I fear that that's probably just sort of self-filtering, that like feel that they know that they're going to have a hard time doing it, so why bother? And I hate to see that. I do know, like I said, I don't think that there's a deaf. It's like an international deaf puppy. There is an international deaf leather title out there. I wish I knew more about it. I've known some of the title holders, but I've not really gotten a lot of info about the title itself. Matt, do you want to take more on that?
I didn't hear initially what Benjamin had asked, but if you're with deaf competitors and whatnot, because typically most of our events are a lot more hearing centric, just nature of the beast at this point. One of the things you have to be sure of is if you're going to have an interpreter, they have to be qualified for that interpreter. And what I mean by that is, like, obviously you have to match language, whatever language mode that is. But if you're going to be voicing for someone who is a deaf competitor and they're like pouring their heart out in the interview and you're just talking like, yes, I just care about my community and want to do good for them, that's what the judges are hearing. Oh. So I have seen in the past people who have been interpreted for deaf competitors that they're not putting it out there properly, and that counts against their score. So really that comes down to a matter of the competition itself being able to vet these interpreters and the accessibility for other people, but also, you know, the integrity of that person themselves. Like, are they really up to it? I've been asked to interpret things before that I feel like I 100% cannot do that. I'm just not up to the task. I'm not capable of doing it. It's knowing your skill set. And I think our competitions are really good about providing the access needed at this point. I haven't I've been interpreting in Cincinnati, but when we do have deaf attendees, it very much comes down to their needs. Just because me being an interpreter, I'm not a match for everybody. There's plenty of people I'm not a match for, 100%. But it's being cognizant of each and everything. Like, so we know we're aware we need interpreters. It's how in depth do we need to go with that to make sure we're giving the proper access for everybody.
And I'm actually going to even, because I'm reading the comments too here, that apparently International Deaf Leather ended in 2011. So darn. But that it was a thing that existed. I do think that more competitions should, because the Indie Puppy, I believe last year, and I'm blanking on a name and I apologize, was very much on the visually impaired topic. That's something that
Leo.
Yeah, that he pushed for that a lot. So it's something that there is a lot of room for improvement in all contests, and we really rely on those that kind of help those with these difficulties and those that live with them to help teach us how to do this stuff better, so that we can have that, like, so people can compete fairly and, as Benjamin said, without insult. That it doesn't. So the contestant doesn't look stupid on stage. You know, it's like you want them to have the most honoring, the most respectful time up there, and not just be disqualified or be deducted because, you know, a question's not translating, or there's just something that's not quite coming through.
I want to. There's definitely going through the questions and in the comments, and so I want to make sure that I do get to everybody. But I want to circle back. Let me just scroll up here. Juicy Paw, I love that. Question. If you win one title, does that obligate you to compete in another title or in another competition?
That's easy. Yeah, no. Title depends. Some have very clear and specific instructions to do so. Others leave it open. So Cincinnati Puppy this year was very much and it's because, like, the whole feeder system for Puppy is a little different than certain other ones. There are very specific, because right now there is only one international pup title. There had been two. And now there's just the one international pup and handler, or soon to be pet and handler, maybe something like that. Pup and handler, whatever it is. So they are, but they require very specific feeders to get in. So just because someone won Cincinnati doesn't mean they could go on to something else. But we're here to support them if someone did want to run for something else. Some probably that are in that feeder system would have more specific kind of expectations that a contestant go and do that. So it's going to depend title to title.
How are the judges chosen for the competitions?
So this is one I will say this is a chore. One you take on well, but it's like it can be a challenge. So I will say, this is, again, my experience in selecting judges. You want judges who are familiar enough with the community and sort of what the expectations of, and this is where it is a little bit like, eating our own tail, where you do want people who are familiar with what a title entails, so that they are getting people that, like, they're assessing people on a level of, like, okay, if you're going to pass out from public speaking, maybe a title is not the best place for you. But not say that you couldn't, but say that that might be a thing that they kind of realize, those sort of aspects. When we select judges, I have a whole list of people and we try to get suggestions from as many members of the team as we can. We want to make sure that we are, being a geographically based title, that we are getting local voices, that we are getting, like I said, as many voices of diversity as we can in this. And once in a while, I even try to make sure that we get a judge who maybe isn't part of the pup or leather community. So, like, it's that voice of, like, okay, explain this thing to me because I have no idea what's about or anything. Like, why are you wearing this necklace? What's that about? Tell me, can I touch that? That person is going to be the one who prompt a potential contestant to say, oh, this is my collar and this means this, and don't touch it, please, without permission. And to have that so that they are getting those voices. Again, every competition is going to be a little bit different. There is a little bit of an aspect of, like, you kind of work with those that you know. But we do try to compile a good, diverse list, and I try to ask as many people as I can to get the stuff. That said, you are oftentimes like limited by like people who can, like, it's not going to be super expensive to get to your contest, or you have the budget to do that they're able to do it. So like trying to find people. I will say that last year for Cincinnati Leather, I I had to replace judges as fast as I got them. It was such a challenge. I kept trying to get. There were a lot of people like, oh, I would really like to get this trans leather woman as a judge, and nope, they've got a speaking engagement here. And actually, I think it's a, and I hope I'm not speaking too much from a position of privilege, where it's like I see a lot of contests that want to make sure that they are including trans women's voices, trans men's voices, everyone, some non-binary voices, and there aren't necessarily that many people who are they're contest ready, that might be available and ready and reputable and available for the contest, like, because everybody kind of wants them. Like trying to get people that are not already obligated can be a challenge.
Right.
I said, it's like I could fill up a judges panel with a bunch of white dudes in about 5 minutes, and I take like a month and a half to make sure that doesn't happen, because I realize the more that happens, the more it's going to continue to happen. Mm-hmm. So we try to do this, but it's like every title's a little bit different there too. Yeah. So, but it's a process of trying to figure out like who's going to be that best one to do. But there's not like we have to say like you don't have to have a title. You have to, you have to have kind of done something that's in support of the community, I hope. You're not just sheerly going for star factor, but that you can say like, okay, you did this or that, like you've been a support of the community, even if it's because you've supported this, like this HIV education group, or have kind of been doing these sort of social gatherings that are kink friendly. Those kind of ways are good ways to like say like, that gives the community a chance to recognize like, oh, here's this person who's done this, and why we can sort of like take that voice seriously. You want to make sure you have a judging panel that your community is going to look at and say, okay, these are voices that I trust. These are people's decisions I will trust, that if they pick this person, that they had a good reason.
I want to definitely highlight that portion, but maybe change dynamic and think about diversity when it comes to contestants. Just reading through some of the comments here, and then referring back to the questions that we had pre-prepared earlier. But diversity is definitely, I feel like, is always it's a very sensitive conversation. But as far as contestants, what do you think? And like I said, I have no experience with competitions, and so I really don't know how many women pups are running, or how many pups of color are running in competitions. How do we, without tokenizing people, encourage diversity through competitions?
Oh, you hit it very well, actually. That's actually hard. I would say like it's the problem of like you don't just want someone to run like, oh, I want you to run because you're a person of color. I want you to run because you're trans. Because it also assumes that like that every person like that is going to fit one of your diversity checkboxes is ready and wants to, and isn't going to be super problematic. It's not like we can't have a black title holder who's says a lot of really problematic things about gender. So so you get into a minefield. And like there are tons of dynamics there. I would say like you want to make sure that anyone who runs feels welcome running, that you have put together a judging panel who doesn't have a history of like blatant, because you never can tell what everyone believes all the time, but that they don't have a history of like blatantly doing like all lives matter, or I don't believe in like pronouns and stuff like that. That you want to make sure that they are at least going to honor that part of it. That's the judges, and then for the contestants, I personally try to make a point of trying to get to know everyone as they're coming in, and make sure that I get a little bit of time and start to understand, so I know what we need to do in the contest part and backstage, that our Den Daddy and our support staff know how to respectfully work with these contestants to make sure that like this is something that's out there. I will say that the first year I fully produced Cincinnati Leather, one of the contestants came out as trans in his speech, and I will say the audience went wild. They absolutely loved it, and this kind of gave me a moment to sort of put my money where my mouth was, because we had also quietly removed the gender restriction on, and I realized that being trans and gender, it's like not the same thing. But I made a point of saying into the audience at the end of the speeches that just so everyone knows, anyone is welcome to run for this title, no matter how, what your gender is, what your journey is, what your identification is. You are welcome to be here. And I felt that message was really good, so that people understood, try something. Do not start talking shit about someone because they're trans. They are valid here. They are valued here. But not everybody gets a chance to kind of make that statement, and some people miss an opportunity to make that statement. But I do think that I personally see a ton more female pups. I was lucky the year I ran for Tri-State Leather was the first year we had a puppy title, I believe. And we had one of the two puppy contestants was, I forget which name she goes by. I believe Incus or Gypsy at the time. And she was great. And went on to win international a little while later. But I've seen a lot of female pups. I know we've got one local female pup interested in running for the competition this next time, whenever that happens. I'm seeing a lot more trans contestants. I'm seeing a ton more contestants of color. I don't know if you're familiar with the group Onyx.
Yes.
Which is that they are so supportive of their contestants and prep them so well, and come out and support and just absolutely make those contestants feel so loved by the crowd. I love it. I wish more groups could emulate, could bring that energy to the people they've got on stage. So I'm seeing it more, but there's always more you can do.
Sparky, what are your thoughts about, how do we, because you're, from the opposite end of being in the position of I'm this competition winner, and I mean, you want to encourage as many people to participate in. What are your thoughts surrounding diversity and all that goodness?
So I think bringing any kind of diversity into any of these competitions really focuses on how we behave as a community. I know I can look back when I ran for Cincinnati Leather that it was mostly just cis white dudes that were even out and about at any event, and that's the only socialization that would happen. And when we're looking at now and people are more, I don't want to say open-minded, less idiotic, and they have that realization oh, but it's not just boy and girl, there's more. As we move into an era where we are less stupid and it's our spaces and our events, even our social events, being more open and accepting, and finding those people that are new and they're all on the outside, I don't fit with all this mess, and that option to kind of bring them in and be hey, no, come hang out with us. And it's expanding the socialization aspect of it, how we all are within the community. That's how we change these competitions, because once we get out of that white casual racism mindset and we start acting like freaking human beings, then our community is growing, and then people are all, oh yeah, no, but I want to run for Cincinnati Puppy. That sounds great. That in my head, that's how we get there.
We're talking about like now. I think we're talking about facets of identity when it comes to like maybe our racial makeup or our gender expression and or identity. But there's a different type of inclusivity conversation that's happening in the puppy community, and this is revolving around pets. And so to bring it back, talking about different sorts of inclusivity, we have two questions, and they both basically ask the same thing. Um, so, in the vein of inclusivity, will puppy contests most likely turn into pet contests, or will there be a way to make them both exist, like kitties, dragons, and ponies? And then to follow up with that, um, uh, Scruff asks, "Do puppies only have to run for pup titles?" I want to preference this with like this is essentially a two-part question. I was having this conversation with some leaders of different paw organizations, and one the question is, I feel like when it comes to like creating pup spaces, pup specific or maybe kitty specific spaces, I feel like those spaces are valid and important to have when you like to have like what's the word I'm looking for. Um, people that want to be surrounded by people of like-minded interests. There's that aspect of it, but also when there aren't very many platforms or spaces for the variety of different pets out there, like what is the responsibility of the puppy community to share that platform with other types of pets? So I know that's a really loaded question. Sparky, let's go ahead and start off with your thoughts on changing maybe I don't think the question is do we change pup titles to be pet titles, or maybe it is, but what are your thoughts around that entire conversation?
Yay, loaded questions. We should definitely start with the trash puppy for those. That sounds like a great idea.
Take it.
Just go ahead.
So obviously puppy's kind of been huge for me, and the idea of pet is more new even in just like my social circles and whatnot. The more I don't know, thought about it, even with the local group and whatnot, and deciding to go with pet as opposed to pup, I think pet is more all encompassing. And I've had the thought, like, most places have a pup title. Could you just transition it to a pet title? And there's that normal war in my head, like, but puppies are important. But I really get down to more, I like the idea of merging the community as a whole. Like, yes, if puppies want to hang out with puppies, like, you have that option to go hang out with puppies. But I feel like an event in a community that wants to be inclusive, like, as opposed to just this is puppy, like, open it up to pet and everyone feels welcome. And in case I get off track, we'll go with that's a good answer. Even
but the question like surfaces like when especially talking about competitions, they're I was watching a video like this is like way a while ago of a puppy competition where it's like they had certain with this competition they had certain acts that they wanted you to interact with a trainer and a handler to go through. I believe it was an obstacle course. A puppy doing that, or that definitely falls more into the puppy role. Like, are you going to be able to get a kitty to do that? Are you going to be able to get a dragon to do that, or a pony to do that? Like it would definitely shift the requirements of interactions with trainers and handlers. No, or maybe you just see who gives the best performance as how they identify as a pet.
So yes, and so an issue with that is like obviously I love the idea of it all being pet. However, every pet is so different. I recently discovered one of my friends has a friend of theirs who is a mouse. That is their pet. And in my head, I'm like, I can't grasp how that would even play out, like, at all. And so when it comes to a competition, like, how would you judge a dragon, a parrot, a hamster, a puppy, a kitty, whatever that person identifies as? And I think it'd be super difficult. However, because we're talking about, like the obstacle course and whatnot, there's such an option to remove that part because not every animal does an obstacle course and replace it with something else that is friendlier to all of them. Like you see at some puppy competitions, they have like on the mats and they have to show like it's an actual dog show. You could do something similar, just showing your pet. And I think there's a great opportunity that you could do that. Obviously, we're not changing everything that's puppy to pet overnight, but from me, I think I'd love to see that happen overall, and really just it gives the community a chance to focus on other pets, because I haven't seen a title holder who identifies as a dragon. Well, maybe I have actually, but that's another story. I just think there's so many aspects of that we don't get to see because there's not a title for them, because in a lot of communities you won't necessarily have a lot of a specific type of pet so that they would have that title. If I'm making sense, or I don't know if I'm going totally into that.
Bolt, thoughts?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of this it comes down to on one level, and this is where it gets like really tricky in this. I've seen, honestly, this one where it's like watching the pet inclusion dynamic start to play out has been really interesting to watch. I actually granted, I'm a little more dabbling in it. I'll sort of be out there, like I've been sort of sticking my paw in the kitty area and knocking glasses off tables.
Yes.
So just because I started to find, it's like, well, I started in Pup because Pup was what was there, and I really didn't see kitties or everything else going on. So I not that I have very much fun at home in the pup community. So the tricky is that as a producer, where it gets tricky, again, it's you want to make sure your contest experience is respectful to all your contestants. The tricky part where you're putting, okay, say we have a contest and we have 5 pups and 1 kitty, and if we don't change any categories, then like certain things like the mosh, like certain judges are going to know how to judge a pup. They've seen other pup contests. They may have run for one. They have a sense of that. They haven't seen how a kitty does this. And so the expectation falls to that one contestant to be able to explain their fetish in so much more detail than the pups have to. They have to do, to use the old Ginger Rogers phrase, like, yeah, I have to do it backwards and it heals. Like, they have to put so much more effort into doing it that it kind of immediately puts them in a disadvantage. Occasionally you get a superstar that'll come into one of these contests and will really be able to state that. But not everyone's, like that's a lot of pressure to put on anyone. To say, like, now you have to be representative of all kitties, all ponies, all dragons, whatever it's going to be. What I'm seeing a lot of people do, just because the puppy has developed such a specific identity and language and codes and symbols, that what I'm seeing a lot of contests start to do is they'll create a parallel that is, they'll have the pups in one, and then they'll have one that's open to all critters. I think eventually things will merge into one more pet play thing. But for now, until the other ones have a chance to get that platform and get seen and get understood a little bit better, it puts them at a disadvantage. And it's really not fair to them, especially when it's like, okay, well, let's say we'll shine that light. We'll make sure that you get some equal time. And I know a lot of title holders are like, oh, yeah, they're enthusiastic about wanting to include add another aspect to the title family and see that. I know a lot of things, like as Cincinnati, we are, we're probably we're waiting to see how some of the other contests, what they do for this. Because again, if like a mosh, Judge Mosh is part of our contest, how do we do that for something who's moshing may look very, very, very different. And how do we kind of put that on an equal playing field? How can we make sure that the contested categories are not even in certain coded words biased towards certain presentations? So so you really have to think through a lot of the details of those. And typically it's a lot of these contests, we watch what each other do, and if we see something that works, we'll emulate it. And so whenever somebody does this and thinks it through, as you kind of said, that show ring portion, I even see someone kind of Wolfgang noted that the show ring portion IPTC allows for people with other critter identities to do other things that might present better for them. So it's something that really needs to be done well. You need to make sure, when you're sort of instructing your judges, when you're working on your score sheets, when you're setting up the contest structure, that if you're going to just immediately merge them all, that it is very thoughtfully done in a way that doesn't either incorrectly bias pups or like, depending on how you look at it, would unevenly like did by saying, like, well, now we can't use any of the puppy language, and like you can see people like sort of banning that. Well, then you're like, well, crap, now I have to find a new way of talking about this fetish that everyone kind of understands, and it gets dicey real fast.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of people want to do stuff. I know the international level is working on including that, and I expect that to start sort of trickling out and showing up in more community contests all the time.
I want to. We've got about 15 minutes before we're at an hour and a half doing this stream. Everybody who's watching, if you have questions, this is the time to get them in. But while we're reviewing some of the discussion that we've had, of course, in the past, competitions have been very much hands-on, in person. And we can't ignore the times. And so we're circling back to the beginning of this conversation where it's like, what do competitions now look like? Or what are some of the conversations that we're having about competitions to keep that spirit alive in a COVID world?
I will say this has been on my mind a lot. Actually, Sparky, I want you to chime in too, because we discussed this a little bit, this idea as when this first started, the question in my mind was, okay, how does a title that is all about bringing people together to gather them into a safe space that is a like sex positive kind of space, how do we function in a place where gathering is inherently unsafe, as is like that intimate sort of contact? Like, how do we suddenly stay sex positive in a time where it'd be really easy to sex shame? Yeah, deep thoughts. So it's tricky. I've seen, of course, we've seen a ton of contests canceled for this year. I've seen a lot of stuff that is either deferring to the fall or just canceling outright. And I have to remind people, we're 7 weeks in. We're like, while that seems like a long time, in the course of like the planning it takes for one of these contests, it's been no time at all. So trying to figure out and it keeps evolving. So what it's going to be like in a few months or even next year, who knows? That said, I've seen a lot of people try to take stuff online. I haven't seen too many contests fully try to go virtually or to go virtual. I think that that's going to be really tricky. I think that if you had a virtual contest and suddenly if we had a good treatment program and people felt more comfortable going out, suddenly we have this sort of internet winner who isn't ready for that kind of aspect of it. Mm-hmm. However, I think that it's a good idea. One thing that we're sort of pondering is to make sure that we have virtual and live stream components to our contest so that people who don't feel comfortable being there don't have to be there. Now, how that works for contestants, that gets dicey, but contestants can actually be fairly easily removed from most of the crowd. And so assuming that they have enough space to change and be appropriately distanced, it's not like they're making out with the judges and they're actually at least 6 feet from the audience. So there are ways to keep contestants relatively safe. And I would like to see certain parts of this that could be pre-recorded so that contestants wouldn't necessarily have to be in the whole thing. Now, I will say that if we do our competition, we're very much hoping Cincinnati Puppy will be. We are not happening as we were scheduled for next weekend. That's not happening. Go figure. We are aiming more for the fall. Fun story time. So we had actually talked to our venue for the puppy competition and found a new date. And we're about to announce it. It was going to be in October. And then I saw that IPAW was announcing that they were hoping to have stick to their dates in July. And if they had to move, it was going to land on the exact same weekend in October. And I'm not going up against IPAW because they're one state away, and that would be real rude. So we decided well, okay, that's not going to happen. So we're going to try to figure out what we can even do. But even so, if we do it, we've already kind of said we can't have a judged mosh. There's no way to socially distant mosh. There's no way. It's that particular category. It's we will have to some other way of doing it. What our thought there is that we're going to have our handler contestants for another part of the competition do a sort of educational presentation or something. The idea is like, okay, if the handler is a more mentor training kind of figure, well, then present, train, show your community that you know what the hell you're talking about. So we may have everyone do that. And in a time where we're leaning so hard on virtual, that we want to make sure that whoever is doing that is going to be, savvy in that kind of way of interacting. That might be the way that we gather our community for the time being. That this is what it's like. So to know that someone's got the ability to interact online without being an enormous bag of dicks would be really key to know for this title.
I mean, there's definitely that aspect of like, how do you go about planning it and like conducting it? One, like, is it going to be streamed? How are you going to take these video submissions, this, down, the other? I remember seeing a post. Somebody was competing in a virtual pet competition called, I believe it was called The Secret Talent of Pets or something like that. And that was, I mean, maybe seen like one or two posts about that. Sparky, like from like a competitor's viewpoint, is it like, I guess, is it a viable resource to do video or through live streaming to really showcase like your pet identity? Can you really relate to the judges or the audience in the same way virtually versus in person?
So, with showcasing your pet identity, like from home, where I'm like most comfortable and I can do all the things I want to do, absolutely, that would be super easy in that aspect. Like, you could definitely show as much of your puppy pet self as you wanted to. The part that would be difficult, I think, in my head is I remember being super intimidated when I walked in and I had to look the judges in the faces while they're asking me questions. Whereas if I'm at home, like, I don't even have to wear pants while I'm talking to the judges. It's there are parts of it that it'd be much easier on the competitor to do this virtually, because there just isn't as much stress. Like, you don't have the eyes of the entire audience on you. And I mean, if you have the eyes of people on here, like if it's being broadcast live, like they're not all popping up on here. So I don't know. I think people could be more relaxed and have the ability to be a little more eloquent in the things that they say. So from the competitor standpoint, I think it'd be almost beneficial to the person because you have that comfort zone that you're in. Yeah.
All right, El, we've got about 8 minutes left. Bolt, did you want
I would actually, if I could note real quick, I believe actually there is, I think it's, I know people have opinions about this, that the Geared Up Pup title, assuming that's still functional, is actually an online competition. They don't have any in-person kind of part that I'm aware of. Again, I don't know a ton about it. I know that it exists. I know that it's online only. I believe a vendor of some sort sponsors it. So kind of puts out there and kind of with the idea of like being sort of an internet representative of Puppy. So that does exist, at least in that one form.
We're getting close here to the 30-minute mark. And so I wanted to ask, what are your just closing thoughts? What is maybe a misconception about competitions or being a title holder that you may want to clarify? Essentially, what do you want the audience that's watching now, what do you want them to take away from like this conversation and about competitions?
I'll go first since Bolt will take a lot longer to answer.
Accurate, but rude.
I think I lost my train of thought. It's gone. Anyway, so my biggest takeaway, if I had to give one, is competitions are absolutely amazing for getting out there and getting to know your community, and titles are a great way to give yourself that confidence boost to get out there and be you and put forward your message. And yeah, fuck, I lost it again. Hold on, I'm gonna recover. I'm totally not gonna recover. But I don't know. Contests are awesome. They're not the be all end all. I think they're a great place to learn. I think it's a great place to meet people. I think titles can help some people just running for it or even winning it, like give them confidence they didn't have before. Some people, I've heard them say things like, I wish I had a title so I was more accepted. And while I hate hearing things like that, it can totally be something like that for someone. So I feel, I don't know, there are people that are against contests because they think it's all a popularity contest and it's just like, I don't know, a boys club or whatever. And that's ridiculous and it doesn't need to be that. And I think if you have an issue and you feel something like that, like you can run for a title and show everybody how it should be done, like some title holders have done. Kind of like Bolt, but don't tell him I said that. I don't want him to think I like him.
What was that?
Nothing.
For a second. What was that? Sorry, I missed it.
Bolt, closing thoughts.
Okay. So I remember a couple years ago, and again, a lot of my experiences in the leather world, so bear that in mind. I saw a contestant IML a few years ago who very bearish, curvier guy, and up there, and even kind of, it talked about in his speech how it was to be the non-gym body, to be the the person up there that not necessarily everyone thought, oh yeah, I totally want to fuck that guy. And so we tend to a lot of people, especially people who are new to contests, think that the fuckability aspect is the be all end all. That if someone wins who doesn't have that, it's sort of a disservice. I utterly disagree with that whole concept. This idea that you have to be that piece of it, I think misses the spirit of the whole thing. What I tell anybody that does this, you can run for a competition. If you run and if winning is the only way you're going to have a good time with it, then you're going to look at this and say, if you can come out of that weekend and not win, and you're going to say, oh, that was a fucking waste of my time, why did I even do that? Then you should not run. I mean, that's not the reason to do this. Because if you can get up there and show your best self, whatever that is, if it is if you are whatever you represent, whatever sort of flavor of your queerness, of your fetish, I don't want to go down the whole checkbox of various diversities, that if you are up there showing your best self, someone, I promise you, someone out in that audience is thinking I could do this. And so when the audience claps for that person, when they give their speech, when they pour their heart out and everyone applauds, they are clapping for that person in the audience too. And that person might that they may never grace the stage, but they will feel validated in a way. And that's why I think making sure that people who don't feel they fit the mold, who are a different flavor of this, really should get up there and show this. I think it's really important for a lot of people. That said, I feel like there are so many ways that people can contribute and be taken seriously and really be valuable members of the community and never have a sash. I think that in many ways, sashes are given so too much weight that people are given a level of access that they may not even want or be ready for, that they just really want to help out. And people are like, oh, well, you must know everything about everything. That don't think that just because a title's not right for you that you can't do stuff, that you're not valid as you are. There are a ton of ways to get involved. And I think that the best thing that titles can do is just start to show okay, this time, this weekend with these judges, this person won. Everyone here was valid. Everyone made points. Everyone did their thing. And these are the people who want to be involved in this community and do stuff. So next time you're looking for someone to help out, don't necessarily just look for the one in the sash. Look for everyone else who was up there wanting to make a difference too. Because this is their chance to I'm a big believer in this tribal rite of passage, that this is how we do this. And so I think it's really important for the people who feel it's right for them, have a good experience, feel confident, know when is right, and there are tons of not right times to run for a contest, know when it's right for you, and give it your all. And if you only ever do it once and enjoy the fuck out of it. And if it doesn't work the first time, don't feel afraid to go again. Just it's season to taste. Know yourself and show the best self you can.
I love that. Bull and Sparky, thank you so much for like taking the time out of your Sunday one to have this conversation and enlightening me because I was completely dumb when it came to the idea of competitions or how they worked or who competes. It's really nice to actually hear from people that are in it and not just going off of the speculation of what we see online or through hearsay. It's I think it's more like there's so many different ways that you can portray how you identify as a puppy or a pet, and this is one of those outlets. Just thank you so much for spending some time with everybody and audience. Thank y'all for your amazing questions and hanging out with us for today.
Thank you. This is yeah. Thank you so much. I just asked that you send me your poutine recipe.
We won't talk about that until
I have a ton of cheese sticks. I'm ready.
I'll send you the recipe. Follow me for more recipes. Again, Bolt, Sparky, thank you so much. And to everybody who's watching, have a great night.